Roundup Radio.
Roundup Radio, your boy B. Moore. I got Lavell Flamon, Mo the Educator, and the one and only David Banner. What's up, fellas?
I'm good. I mean,
all is well. Listen, I appreciate y'all coming on, and we just getting at the people about a key topic and just commentary and see kind of where we are on the state of black leadership. And I know it's a funny phrase because but I want to kind of see where you guys are with who do you believe are your leaders in the black community, and how are we standing so far?
Well, I think first of all, the problem, and I think if we don't learn from our parents, it's going to be similar things that happen to our parents. I don't think the problem is so much black leadership. I think it's that black people don't have a grasp on what they actually want. What are the goals? What are we really moving towards? Because what we have to remember is what they did to our parents was they would let our parents have leaders. They would give us Malcolm. They would give us Martin. We can go down along, Huey. We can go all the black leaders. They give us that, let it build up our pride, let us feel good, and they kill them. The problem was we are too focused on people and not on the matters at hand. One thing that I truly fear is, let's just even say America said, okay, black folks, we sorry for putting y'all in slavery and this, that, and the other, drugs, crack, all that. Okay, what do y'all want? We don't even know what we want. So I think one thing that ends up happening is not just black leaders, but leaders in general. One of the things that I don't trust is politicians and preachers, and I'll tell you why. Politicians and preachers were never meant to make a profit. They were always supposed to be for the people. If you go back and look at the true politicians and the true preachers, they were always supposed to be about the people. They may have been bakers, they may have been farmers or whatever they did. And after they, give God word or stand for the people, or they were mayor, then they would go back to their original job. The thing is, anybody who gets donations or who gets money from specific people, then they have to do what those people say, and not the will of God and not the will of the people. So what we have to do is we have to find people who are truly for the people, and the people have to remember that there's goals at hand. That's just my personal opinion.
So, who is there a person that can we name anybody who we say is in a prime position to kind of help us define those goals or publicly kind of stand for those goals?
Well, the problem is most of the people who can be that person, excuse me, and I'll let y'all go, the people that can be that could possibly be that person, they're not affected by what the average average person is affected by. So it has to come from the people, and that person has to, the person more or less has to take out what the people want. That's what I did as SGA president. When I was at Southern, they asked me, they said, well, what platform do you run on? I said, well, for me to have a platform means that I'm doing my will and not the will of the people.
No, and I would say, conceptually, black leadership is just that. You know what I mean? For me, it's the concept that there's a group of us, and that group can be as little or as big as it needs to be. W.B. Du Bois said it's 10% of us. To me, it's not. I don't know that it's necessarily limited by 10%. It could be more, it could be less. I think that, like you said, name black leaders. I think you got 4 right here, on this radio broadcast. And we all lead, and we all have, for example, different ability and different talents and touching the people. You know what I mean? You got the big internet president, and Banner, got through his music and movies, and Lavell through his music and his. And what he's been able to do, and me, trying to do it in the classroom and in academia, we are black leadership. You know what I mean? It doesn't mean that we need to be, necessarily have that face time and put ourselves up like, yeah, I'm a black leader and I speak for black people. Because there's a difference between like being a leader and speaking for the people and being like, the main cat, like the person that people look to say what black people think. I think it's important that we say black leadership is diverse. You know what I mean? It's the hip hop artist. It's the dude who, you know, was valedictorian of architecture. It's the academic fat, you know, at University of Washington.
Can there be
Roundup.
white people as being black leaders? I mean, it happens all the time, man. You got white students. I mean, white people teaching black kids. You got white pastors teaching all black congregations, and they're leading black people, and they in essence become black leaders, or at least leaders of black people per se. But that's just a little side point. To David's point, I think the idea that having a platform is contrary to being a leader is a good point, in that we need to be working as a community, which means there are no individual leaders, that we're all leading each other by understanding what our issues are, by knowing what the solutions need to be, and by implementing those things.
Hey, how has integration affected the term black leadership or black community?
Wait. I think y'all should go first, because I'm real touchy about that one.
If you feeling it, man, hop on it.
Well, I think integration was one of the worst things that ever happened to black people. I think integration was as bad or worse than slavery. Let me tell you why. What we have to understand is one of the worst things that has happened to black people is instant gratification. We want everything right now. Nothing that's worth anything was right now. Black people before integration, we at least control what books our kids were reading. We had control of our own restaurants. And what happened is some key white leaders saw that, and it was inevitable that black people would become more powerful. If you have it, imagine if we would have kept our own restaurants, our own schools, even though we didn't have the same type of schools that white people had. We controlled what our kids were reading, eating, diligently doing. But we were fooled into thinking that us congregating and being around white people was the best thing for white people. So black folks gave up all of their power, gave up everything, their schools, their books, their ability to teach and feed their children, farming, everything. We want to be in with white people. Now, not that we didn't want the respect or need the same respect as any other man on this earth, but I think the term integration within itself was not defined the way that it was actually executed. It was not integration. It was giving up all of your power and coming over here and being second-class citizens. And the problem with what has happened to America that people don't quantify is that if you look at America and its growth, America has grown 1 billion times since the 60s. So if you had the slave quarters in the master's house, and the master's house grew 1 billion times, then exponentially, the slave house grew just as much. So the fact that we have doctors and lawyers and all these kind of different things, that's in exact, it grew the same amount that the master's house as the master's house did. So what I'm trying to tell people is, in integration, although we grew more and got more money, our power as a whole did not grow as black people, and we actually just gave it up. So now, to me, we're just hot-paid slaves. It's just my personal opinion.
You know, it's funny. Recently, on the business side of things, you know, in terms of marketing, I only say this because this is direct partnership with our business. We deal a lot of times with multicultural marketing agencies whose job it is and was to kind of translate the brand message to the black community or to their black constituency, or you know, and there are Latino, multicultural agencies as well that serve the same purpose. Well, recently, the black agencies have lost major business, and the business itself has gone back over to the general market agency, and the spending has increased. So they took the business away from the translators, basically, brought the dollar spending back inside the house of general market, increased the spending after the fact, and the rationale was, well, black people don't buy along racial lines. They buy along social lines like everybody else, and therefore, you know, we don't need to specifically market to black folks, and therefore we don't need to send this money to these black companies whose job it is to translate, our brand message in the black community. And that's a big deal. It's a big deal because it personally affected our business, and I'm sure it affected many other minority businesses. But I think it's kind of the same thing we're talking about as far as integration. We've kind of bought into a big pill in my view, and still seeing a lot of the rippling effects of it.
Well, how do we change that? We talk about problems all day long, but how do we solve those things? And large part of it is education, and not just going to school to get a degree to get a job. How do you inform people about the history and the politics of being an African through the American experience? How do you talk about your power as quote unquote African American in America? How do you inform people that this culture has not only defined America in terms of its positive aspects, but has influenced the world over? How do you tell people that they have a history beyond slavery, as though you just came here as a slave and you were anything else before that?
Mo, your whole thing is education. I mean, does that do you see social and economic impact of your work as a diversity education person?
No question, man. And to both Ben and Lavell's points, to combine the two, no question. There's been we've conflated some terms. We've confused some terms. There's a difference between integration and desegregation. And what we've had is desegregation. So, like Malcolm talked about, okay, so now we can go to the bathroom and be near a white person. That's desegregation. And that's points well taken. That hasn't had a benefit. For example, from an education standpoint, when Thurgood Marshall, Howard University, HBCU graduate, of course, argued in front of the Supreme Court about integration, right, and about the inequities in education, he was arguing for an increase in the ability to educate black children. What it turned out to be, instead of an integration, was the dissolving of black schools. And in particular, so you had not only a loss of these education centers in black communities, but you also had the black teachers and the black principals losing their jobs because that integration, one-way integration, that's what we call desegregation. You know what I mean? So, and there's a difference between the two. If they had sent white students from the suburbs into those black schools and truly integrated those faculties, all of the schools would have gotten better. Education in general would have got better. But what we had is, like Bell's talking about, when you talk about the African experience in America, and, like Bell's talking about, the deleterious effects that have happened, the negative things that have happened. It's the effects of desegregation has been, okay, we're going to take y'all inferior Negroes and bring you up to our superior white culture, and then we're going to assimilate you into this culture. So now what you have is the deletion. You got a reduction of black culture, and it's replaced with a white culture, which is seen as superior. That's had a negative effect on education, in particular in educating children.
Totally negative.
Cool. Hey, Roundup Radio, we're going to take a break. Tune back in.
Okay. Hey everybody, this is Jackie Powers, a North Carolina A&T State University alum. You're now listening to Roundup Radio, Aggie Pride.
Hey, what's up, y'all? It's your man AJ Calloway, and you're listening to Roundup Radio.
What up, we the Clips? You checking out Roundup Radio. Yeah.
Understand how it's going down. It's your boy Westwood, kingpin of the car game, right with a big dog. We keep it real legendary out there. And I'm bigging up my man Roundup Russie, baby. He turns out the lights. He shuts down the city on Roundup Radio. Make sure you ride for him. Understand how it goes down. AlumniRoundup.com, baby. Real legendary in the game. Putting it down, shutting down the city. Real big. Holla at your boy, Roundup Russie. 1,